Good afternoon, folks. Robert Chappell here, Executive Editor of Madison365 with your daily update for Friday, March 11th. It was 2 years ago today that the wheels came off, that Rudy Gobert tested positive, and they had to cancel the NBA, the first NBA game that got canceled, which then they canceled the whole season shortly thereafter. It was Wednesday, March 11th, 2020, that the University of Wisconsin said don't come back after spring break. It was the 13th that the school district in Madison said they were going to take 2 extra days on spring break, not knowing that it was going to be a whole year. But anyway, so we've made it 2 years, everybody. Well, I guess not all of us have. There's about 12,000 Wisconsin residents who did not make it the 2 years, which is very unfortunate. 12,294 Wisconsinites have died from COVID-19 in these 2 years. The spread of the virus right now is actually in a pretty good place, as you know. The Omicron surge peaked in early January, and we're now down to sort of pre-Delta levels. We're about where we were kind of in mid to late July of last year. We are at 392 new cases per day in the past 7 days. That includes 403 cases today. The percent of positive test rate, when I say we've reached a magic number, we've hit 3%. That's where we want to be. We want to actually be below 3%. That you want 3% or fewer of your tests to be positive. That means you're doing a lot of tests and almost all the tests are negative. Right, which allows you then to isolate those 3% that do test positive and trace those and everything. Excuse me. So that's the good news. The daily average of deaths actually went up by 1 to 10. That's 15 confirmed deaths today. Again, those I'm not terribly concerned about that because it was just 15 deaths were confirmed today. It's grim, but it's paperwork, right? So these are deaths that occurred up to 4 or 5 weeks ago and are just now being confirmed in the state database, right? So I'm not terribly concerned that went from 9 to 10. If it goes any much higher than that, I'll start to worry a little bit, but I don't know that it would, because we're looking at the last 30 days when all the spread numbers were coming down and all the hospitalizations have been coming down, and so I don't anticipate that death average going up significantly at all. Speaking of hospitalizations, the hospital population also continues to fall, although not quite as sharply as it has been. It is, as you get lower and lower towards zero, you're going to level off, right? 313 people currently hospitalized. That's only about a 1% decrease since yesterday, but still 1% is pretty good. That's 3 people. Fewer are in the hospital now than were yesterday, but it's 130 down from a week ago. 55 currently in the ICU. That's down by 5, which is closer to a 10%, about an 8% maybe decrease since yesterday in the ICU population. And that's down by 22 in the past week. So all those numbers are also continue to be very good. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, we are hearing anecdotal reports of school kids starting to catch it, and daycares having little outbreaks. It's not reflected in the data, but it is it's true that as we relax, that there's going to be little outbreaks here and there, and it's going to be very that's not to be dismissive. There's not little outbreaks. It's not little for a family to have to deal with this, right? So that's important to keep in mind, that as the data is getting better, that it's still affecting people. 403 people today in Wisconsin tested positive for COVID. That's just still a lot. So we don't want to be dismissive. We don't want to be too complacent, right? If you're in a big crowd and you want to put a mask on, put a mask on. Just because you don't have to doesn't mean you can't, right? And if you see people with masks on, don't give them a hard time. Just be kind. All right, a couple other things we want to note today. We do not need to take a break because it's Friday, so we'll just get to this. Just a couple of things to note in the news today. This morning, Rodlin May Banting has a profile of Natasha Olodokun, who is a poet from Virginia, but now in Madison at the University of Wisconsin. She just got a fellowship from the Elizabeth George Foundation, which is a big deal in literary circles. And it basically, she's been published in sort of the big poetry journals, American Poetry Journal, Pleiades, Harvard Review, but is now with this grant is able to basically have a year's salary where she can live for a year and write a book. And this will be her first book, and she's going to refine it and sharpen it and get it ready to publish in a year. So congratulations to her. And Rod LeMay's profile is very nice, and you can get a sense of Natasha from that. Then one more thing I'll mention today. Shamrock Shuffle is back. Shamrock Shuffle is the Boys and Girls Club's one of their biggest fundraisers of the year. It's a run and walk and for fun, and it was really the first big fundraiser in Madison that was canceled due to COVID in 2020. And that was an agonizing decision for Michael Johnson and the team there to make, to pull the plug on that fundraiser in the spring of 2020. And but they did it, and they were able to still raise the money. They just asked for donations instead, and then they did the same thing last year, and then this year the event is back. Now they've picked sort of the last really cold day to do it, so it's tomorrow morning. It's gonna be like 10 degrees. But if you're in Wisconsin, you can run in 10 degrees. You're fine. And then Sunday, of course, is going to be beautiful and warm. So just the luck. But anyway, that's all we have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And we'll be back on Monday with all the news for you. Follow us at Madison365.org for the latest. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date all day, every day. Have a great weekend.
This is 365 Media.